All right, guys. Shedeur Sanders. Oh man, this was his roughest game yet. I mean, this play was amazing, but he just time and time again tried to make the home run play. And when you do that as a quarterback, you get into bad habits, you make bad reads, you make bad throws. There was, two interceptions, three total interceptions. Two of them, we'll break them down. I just want you to understand that
the Cleveland Browns are facing what many fear could become one of the NFL's most shocking internal scandals in years. Analysts, former quarterbacks, and sharp-eyed fans have been dissecting game film and noticing patterns that just don't make sense, fueling a growing suspicion that the Browns' offensive line may be deliberately missing assignments, potentially sabotaging rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders on game day. What began as quiet chatter has exploded into a full-blown controversy, serious enough that league officials are reportedly considering whether an official investigation is warranted. This isn't simply about a struggling unit having an off day or making accidental mistakes. Many believe something far more deliberate could be at play. The claims suggest something deeper, darker, and far more calculated. On film, there are moments that make no sense from a football standpoint. Linemen freeze in place while defenders run through untouched, and others barely react as Shedeur Sanders takes brutal hits. Instead of urgency or panic, there's an eerie calm, as if the damage is part of the plan. This goes beyond poor execution, it starts to look intentional. Ever since Sanders was named the starter in that critical game against the Baltimore Ravens weeks ago, the Browns' offensive line has gone from unreliable to virtually unrecognizable. What was once seen as sloppy play has now turned into something historically ugly, raising serious questions both inside and outside the locker room. When you slow the tape down and study it closely, patterns start to emerge. The same breakdowns happen at the same moments, involving the same players. Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback turned analyst, understands offensive line play inside and out after years spent in league locker rooms.
Gonna get on the coach's nerves, and you can get mad at me for pointing it out all you want. Watch Shedeur first before we get to the back view. After the interception, what are you taught as a quarterback? To not stand.
When Chase Daniel recently broke down the tape on Shedeur Sanders, what he uncovered raised serious red flags for anyone connected to the Cleveland Browns. Daniel made it clear that the offense as a whole offered little to no support for their young quarterback. Once you watch the specific plays he highlighted, that statement hits even harder. Calling out the Browns for failing to help Sanders might actually be understating the issue. Daniel did note one bright spot, a moment when Sanders threw himself into a block on a reverse play, showing a team-first mindset and real toughness, especially for a rookie. The problem is that effort was never returned. Instead, Sanders has been consistently left exposed, hit after hit, with no indication that anyone up front is fighting for him. The evidence keeps piling up, and at this point, it's difficult to ignore. One play in particular has become the epicenter of the controversy. Screenshots of the moment have flooded social media, analyzed by coaches, former players, and analysts across every major sports show. On that play, offensive lineman number 72 appears to be blocking nobody at all, no defender in front of him, no engagement, no movement. He stands upright, staring directly at Shedeur Sanders as pressure closes in. It raises a chilling question that refuses to go away: who exactly was number 72 supposed to be blocking? Why is he frozen in place? Why does he appear to be watching the hit happen instead of stopping it? This does not look like a simple mistake or confusion. Watching it in real time, it appears as if the lineman completely walked away from his responsibility. He is not engaged with a single defender, not helping a teammate, not even attempting to slow anyone down. He is simply standing there, watching pass rushers close in on his quarterback. Plays like this force you to question everything you think you know about professional football.
There's only 3 guys in the back, so that means 8 guys at the line of scrimmage. I don't know how the heck anyone would handle this, because it's very difficult. They pick it up here, and he takes a shot, and I love this. This is the best play of the game. Right? This is the type of throw that I think everyone loves about Shedeur Sanders, because what they're doing here, this guy isn't even number 1. He's running a post route through the middle of the defense.
These are elite athletes, players who have spent their entire lives training to master their positions. And yet, the video shows someone who appears to be working against his own team's success. The situation only grows more alarming. During the game against the San Francisco 49ers, another moment emerged that intensified concerns. It was 4th and 1 near the red zone, a high-pressure situation where execution is critical. What followed looked like a total breakdown across the board. Right tackle Jack Conklin launched himself forward in a strange, diving motion that made no football sense, leaving viewers bewildered about what he was trying to accomplish. Even before that, a clear false start in the backfield went unnoticed by the officials, adding another layer of chaos to an already disastrous sequence. Then there is left guard Joel Bitonio, a longtime Browns veteran who should be a stabilizing presence on the offensive line. On this crucial 4th and 1 snap, Bitonio was not beaten by power or speed, he did not lose leverage. He simply went to the ground without blocking anyone. There was no engagement, no struggle, no defender overpowering him. He just dropped to the turf as if his legs gave out, leaving the defender he was responsible for running through completely untouched. On that same play, multiple defenders reached Shedeur Sanders without a single block slowing them down. This was not bad blocking, this was no blocking at all. When analysts reviewed the play live, their reactions said more than any commentary could: long pauses, replays running again and again, voices filled with disbelief as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. This is not how NFL football is supposed to look at any level. These moments feel less like random failures and more like a pattern forming in plain sight. Fast forward to the most recent game, and the same issue reappeared. That image of number 72 standing still was bad enough, but the live replay makes the situation even more alarming as the lack of urgency unfolds in real time. As the play develops, one thing jumps off the screen immediately: the only player moving toward Shedeur Sanders is his own offensive lineman. Let that sink in. The one person who should be forming a protective wall is the only body drifting toward the quarterback while defenders pour through untouched from every angle. Offensive lineman number 72 looks less like a blocker and more like a spectator. Instead of engaging anyone, he appears content to stand by, almost watching the hit happen. This is the kind of footage that should make league executives uncomfortable, raising serious questions about competitive integrity. When players visibly abandon their responsibilities and film shows linemen letting their quarterback absorb punishment without resistance, the league cannot afford to look the other way. This situation goes far beyond basic mistakes or poor technique, it moves into territory that feels intentional. If that is even remotely the case, accountability becomes unavoidable. The stakes are simply too high for this to be dismissed as bad football. Things grow even more troubling when you consider the response from the coaching staff. Recently, the Browns' offensive line coach addressed the media and went out of his way to praise Joel Bitonio, the same player who appears on tape falling to the ground on critical downs and missing assignments at the worst possible moments. The coach described Bitonio's performance from Sunday as outstanding and suggested that outside observers simply do not understand his value. He emphasized Bitonio's toughness in practice throughout the week, even while dealing with injuries, and framed his game-day performances as impressive and consistent. That praise has only added fuel to the controversy, leaving many to question what exactly the coaches are seeing compared to what the rest of the football world is witnessing. Take a moment to process this. The offensive line coach is publicly lauding a player whose film shows him going to the ground on 4th and short, allowing defenders to run through untouched, and contributing to a unit that has become historically ineffective at protecting its quarterback. There are only a few ways to interpret that disconnect. Either the evaluation of offensive line play within the organization is completely detached from reality, or something deeper is influencing these public comments. Some around the league believe this praise serves as a shield for long-tenured veterans, players deeply embedded in the Browns culture who hold influence that a rookie quarterback simply does not. It is also impossible to ignore reports about Joel Bitonio's stance toward Shedeur Sanders. Multiple sources indicate that certain veterans on the offensive line were unhappy when Sanders was named the starter, and that frustration has lingered throughout the season in subtle but noticeable ways.
He's able to move, and I thought that Stefanski should have gone for this 4th and 1 because he did a really good job right here, and he actually has a really good feel. You have the back right there. He has a really good feel for pressure. So when pressure's getting in on him and getting close, he has a good way about him to go around pressure.
When that reported tension is paired with what shows up on film each week, the picture becomes deeply unsettling. It raises the question of whether these breakdowns are truly accidental or if they reflect a deeper internal conflict. Are some veterans trying to send a message about decisions they disagreed with, or is this the clearest example yet of a fractured locker room spiraling out of control? From a technical standpoint, the offensive line's performance has drawn heavy criticism from experts who specialize in line play. Analysts have highlighted repeated failures against basic stunts and twists, concepts every professional offensive line is expected to handle consistently. When those fundamentals collapse week after week, it signals a problem that goes far beyond talent or scheme. The Browns' offensive linemen look completely out of sync. Instead of moving as a cohesive unit, staying level, and smoothly passing defenders off, they either latch onto a single rusher while others sprint through untouched, or drift without blocking anyone at all. One analyst summed it up succinctly, noting how painful it is to watch this group try to protect against even basic stunts. For pass protection to succeed, the entire line must stay connected, but that hasn't happened. The effective offensive line play requires communication, awareness, and trust across every position. What shows up on film is the exact opposite: confusion, hesitation, and breakdowns that feel less like accidents and more like intentional disengagement. These are not young players learning on the fly, these are seasoned professionals who have spent years in the league and should be executing these schemes instinctively. When that reported tension is paired with what shows up on film each week, the picture becomes deeply unsettling. It raises the question of whether these breakdowns are truly accidental or if they reflect a deeper internal conflict. Are some veterans trying to send a message about decisions they disagreed with, or is this the clearest example yet of a fractured locker room spiraling out of control? From a technical standpoint, the offensive line's performance has drawn heavy criticism from experts who specialize in line play. Analysts have highlighted repeated failures against basic stunts and twists, concepts every professional offensive line is expected to handle consistently. When those fundamentals collapse week after week, it signals a problem that goes far beyond talent or scheme. The Browns' offensive linemen look completely out of sync. Instead of moving as a cohesive unit, staying level, and smoothly passing defenders off, they either latch onto a single rusher while others sprint through untouched, or drift without blocking anyone at all. One analyst summed it up succinctly, noting how painful it is to watch this group try to protect against even basic stunts. For pass protection to succeed, the entire line must stay connected, but that hasn't happened. The effective offensive line play requires communication, awareness, and trust across every position. What shows up on film is the exact opposite: confusion, hesitation, and breakdowns that feel less like accidents and more like intentional disengagement. These are not young players learning on the fly, these are seasoned professionals who have spent years in the league and should be executing these schemes instinctively. The scale of these failures pushes the conversation beyond coaching or talent, forcing a harder look at the situation as a whole. The Cleveland Browns are a long-established NFL franchise competing in the most high-profile football league in the world. This is not a rebuilding program short on resources or experience. They employ some of the highest-paid athletes in the sport, operate out of elite facilities with top-tier coaching staffs, and have every advantage needed to compete at a high level. And yet, what keeps showing up on Sundays looks like a unit actively working against its own success. This has fueled growing speculation about the possible motivations behind this behavior. Some have questioned whether personal resentment toward Shedeur Sanders plays a role, particularly given his last name. His father, Deion Sanders, is one of football's most recognizable figures and has never hesitated to speak openly when he believes something is wrong. Whether that legacy factors into what is happening on the field remains unclear, but the question itself underscores how disturbing this situation has become. Did the decision to draft Shedeur Sanders spark resentment among veterans who felt forced to accept what they viewed as favoritism? Or does it point to something even deeper, an organizational culture in Cleveland that has grown so toxic that some players would rather see the team struggle than admit they were wrong about a rookie quarterback? There is also a financial layer that cannot be ignored. Offensive linemen operate under guaranteed contracts, and their performance directly impacts the quarterback's success and long-term health. If certain veterans wanted to see Sanders fail, slowing his development or putting him in harm's way, it could serve several interests at once, reinforcing their early negative evaluations and potentially pushing the organization to draft another quarterback, giving them a reset with someone they preferred from the start. And it would shift blame away from the offensive line, allowing the narrative to focus on the quarterback rather than those failing to protect him. At this point, the NFL has a responsibility to take a closer look at what is happening with the Cleveland Browns offensive line. This goes beyond typical locker room tension or poor execution. The situation involves repeated breakdowns that expose a quarterback to unnecessary punishment. Shedeur Sanders is taking hits no player should endure, especially when the film suggests his own protection unit may be contributing to the damage rather than preventing it. Every unblocked defender, every snap where Shedeur Sanders is left fully exposed, represents a real risk to his career. Repeated hits like these are not just part of the game when they come without protection. If it were ever shown that players deliberately failed to perform their duties and knowingly put their quarterback in danger, serious legal questions could follow. There could be multiple angles to that fallout. Sanders himself could potentially argue that he was placed in an unsafe working environment. The Browns organization could explore action against players if deliberate non-performance violated contract obligations. And the NFL Players Association would almost certainly become involved if evidence suggested that a rookie was being mistreated in a way that crossed league policy lines. What starts as a football issue could quickly escalate into a legal situation, forcing the league to rethink how internal team conflicts are handled. What makes this especially difficult to watch is the tape of Shedeur Sanders himself. When analysts isolate his play and remove the constant breakdowns in front of him, a different picture emerges, a young quarterback clearly fighting to make things work. He processes the field, moves through his reads, shows awareness in collapsing pockets, and tries to create opportunities even when protection fails almost immediately. On the reverse play highlighted by Chase Daniel, Sanders even threw himself into a block, displaying a team-first mentality that should set the tone in the locker room. Instead of that effort being matched, the film suggests the opposite. Rather than rallying around their rookie quarterback and helping him grow, certain members of the offensive line appear disengaged. That contrast between Sanders' effort and the protection he receives continues to fuel concern around this entire situation. They are leaving him completely exposed, watching him absorb hits that never needed to happen. They are putting him in situations where success is nearly impossible, regardless of his talent or how well he executes his responsibilities. That kind of behavior undermines the very foundation of team sports. It breaks the trust players must have in one another to survive and succeed at this level. The Cleveland Browns now sit at a critical crossroads. They can keep brushing this off as a talent issue or blame it on execution errors, or they can finally acknowledge what the film keeps showing: something deeper appears to be happening, and confronting it will not be easy. Choosing accountability would mean having uncomfortable conversations with long-tenured veterans. It would mean considering moves involving players with significant guaranteed money still tied to their contracts. It would also require admitting that the organization failed to protect its rookie quarterback and allowed a toxic dynamic to grow unchecked. Ignoring the problem, however, carries even greater consequences. If the Browns continue sending the same offensive lineman onto the field despite repeated evidence that they cannot or will not protect Shedeur Sanders, the organization becomes responsible for whatever comes next. Continuing down that path invites disaster. If Sanders eventually suffers a serious injury after being left unprotected week after week, there will be no hiding behind excuses or public relations messaging. The responsibility will fall squarely on the organization. The truth is clear: Cleveland needs a major reset up front. The offensive line requires a full overhaul, starting with upgrades at both guard positions, if this situa. Public reaction has been brutal. Fans from across the league, not just Browns supporters, have shared clips and screenshots highlighting the protection failures. Former offensive linemen have weighed in, many saying they have never seen anything quite like what is happening in Cleveland. The consensus is hard to ignore: this does not look like ordinary bad play, it looks intentional. In the court of public opinion, judgment has already been passed. The remaining question is whether the NFL and the Browns organization are willing to acknowledge what so many others believe is obvious. That hesitation has only intensified frustration among Browns fans who have invested time, money, and loyalty into this team for decades. Since the franchise returned in 1999, fans have endured disappointment after disappointment. Now, they finally have a young quarterback with real talent and upside, someone who could stabilize a position that has haunted the franchise for years. Instead of watching him develop, they are witnessing what appears to be internal dysfunction threaten to derail another potential franchise quarterback before his career truly begins. Browns fans deserve better than this. Shedeur Sanders deserves better than this. The wider NFL fan base deserves better than this. The timing of these revelations adds another layer. They are surfacing during the holiday season, a period when organizations often reflect on the past and plan for the future. This should be a period of serious self-examination for Cleveland. Hard questions need to be asked. How was this allowed to happen? Why was it not addressed sooner? What safeguards will be put in place to ensure it never happens again? Polished statements and vague reassurances are no longer enough. The evidence is visible. The consequences are real, and the damage has already been done. At the end of the day, this situation forces everyone to confront an uncomfortable reality. Football is built on trust, accountability, and shared responsibility. When any of those pillars collapse, the entire structure follows. What has unfolded in Cleveland is not just about blown blocks or missed assignments, it is about whether a professional organization upheld its duty to protect its players and preserve the integrity of the game. Shedeur Sanders stepped into the NFL carrying pressure, expectations, and scrutiny from every direction. What he did not sign up for was fighting his own circumstances on every single snap. Talent can only overcome so much when the environment is actively working against it. No quarterback, rookie or veteran, can succeed without protection, support, and belief from those around him. Now, the spotlight shifts to what happens next. Whether the league intervenes or the Browns take decisive internal action, this moment will define how seriously the NFL treats accountability inside locker rooms. Ignoring it risks normalizing behavior that puts careers and health at risk. This story is far from over. The film will continue to be studied. The questions will keep getting louder, and the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. For deeper breakdowns, raw film analysis, and stories the mainstream avoids, stay locked in with Huddle Files. That's where the tape gets slowed down, narratives get challenged, and the real conversations begin. Every second will be broken down, every twist, every leak, every hidden play behind the headlines. Subscribe, drop a comment, and share. It's where the real NFL stories happen.